Hello there and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist. Tonight we're journeying through 4 billion years of life on Earth, a story of incredible transformation, adaptation, and resilience. From the first microscopic organisms to the vast ecosystems we see today, life has shaped this planet and been shaped by it in turn. We'll explore how single cells became forests, how creatures rose from the seas to walk on land, how life survived catastrophe after catastrophe, and how intelligence emerged from the cosmic dust. It's a story written in DNA, told in fossils, and continuously being rewritten by evolution. So settle in, let your thoughts drift through deep time, and join me as we celebrate the endless creativity of life itself. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious explorations help you unwind or give you a quiet way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too. One sleepy soul at a time. The story of life begins. Let's go back in time, to a place we can barely imagine. The Earth is young, only a few 100 million years old. The surface is hostile, bombarded by meteorites, racked by volcanic eruptions. Yet somewhere in this chaos, in quiet pools, or perhaps beneath the ocean's surface, something remarkable is stirring. Simple molecules, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, are combining in new ways. They're creating chains, rings, structures, increasingly complex. These molecules have no consciousness, no awareness of their significance. They simply follow chemistry's rules, bonding according to the laws of physics. Yet they're assembling themselves into configurations that can do something extraordinary. They can replicate. They can make copies of themselves. This is life's beginning, not born from a single moment, but gradually emerging from chemistry as molecules become more intricate and self-sustaining. There's poetry in how the inanimate becomes animate, how order emerges from disorder. Life didn't arrive fully formed. It bootstrapped itself from simpler components, learning how to persist, how to grow, how to transform the world around it. A young planet, covered in oceans. Picture early Earth, about 4.5 billion years ago. The surface is vastly different from today. Continents haven't formed their current shapes. The sky is orange-brown, dominated by nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane. No free oxygen. And everywhere, there's water. Vast oceans cover nearly the entire planet, with perhaps only small islands of rock jutting above the waves. These oceans aren't like modern seas. They're murky, rich with dissolved minerals leached from volcanic rocks. They're warm, heated by both the sun and the Earth's internal radioactivity. The chemistry is raw, abundant with molecules that would be destroyed in our oxygen-rich atmosphere. There's no life yet, but life is coming, and the ocean is the birthplace. Water is essential. It's a solvent, a medium, where molecules can move and interact. The ocean provides shelter from ultraviolet radiation that streams from the sun, unfiltered by any ozone layer. The minerals dissolved in seawater provide nutrients and building blocks. Energy is available from chemical reactions, from thermal vents at the seafloor. The young ocean is a vast crucible, a laboratory where life will begin to write its first chapters, the first molecules of life. In the warm oceans, chemistry was becoming increasingly sophisticated. Simple molecules were combining into more complex ones. Amino acids, nucleotides, lipids. These building blocks of life weren't created by life, but formed through natural chemical processes. Energy from the sun, from lightning, from thermal vents, drove reactions that assembled them. Amino acids linked together into chains called proteins, each with unique properties and abilities. Nucleotides formed polymers, RNA and DNA, that could encode information and replicate. Lipids organized into membranes, creating boundaries between inside and outside. For perhaps hundreds of millions of years, this chemical evolution proceeded. Molecules became more elaborate, more capable. Some could catalyze reactions, speeding up chemistry. Others could store and transmit information. It was like nature was discovering the rules, learning what was possible. Then, at some point, we can never precisely pinpoint, the distinction between chemistry and biology blurred. Molecules that could replicate with fidelity emerged. They competed for resources. The most stable, most efficient copies persisted. Evolution had begun, operating on chemistry itself, long before anything we'd recognize as living. The birth of single-celled organisms. Around 3.8 to 3.5 billion years ago, life existed. The first cells, primitive by any measure, had emerged from the chemical crucible. These were prokaryotes, cells without a nucleus, tiny bags of molecules enclosed by a membrane. They contained DNA that encoded instructions for making proteins. They could consume nutrients, use energy to maintain themselves, and replicate. From our modern perspective, they're almost incomprehensibly simple, yet they possess the essence of life: self-replication, response to environment, metabolism. These first cells were microbes, bacteria. They spread through the oceans, founding all subsequent life. Every organism alive today, including us, descends from these humble beginnings. For perhaps a billion years, bacteria were alone on Earth, the only life. They were wildly successful, diversifying into countless forms, adapting to different environments. Some thrived in warm vents at the seafloor. Others floated near the surface. Some survived in salty brine pools. They evolved metabolic pathways to extract energy from various sources. In their diversity, they explored what was possible for single-celled life, establishing the fundamental strategies life would use forever. The world of microbes. For the first 2 billion years of life, the world belonged entirely to microbes. This wasn't a barren time. It was an age of microscopic abundance and incredible diversity. Bacteria populated every niche, every available habitat. They existed in deserts of rock, in deep ocean trenches, in the bodies of other organisms. They evolved thousands of different metabolisms, extracting energy from chemical reactions, from iron, from sulfur compounds, from the sun itself. Some developed photosynthesis, capturing light energy and converting it into chemical energy. Others became parasites, living inside larger cells. Some clustered together, forming mats and colonies. The ocean was thick with them, a soup of single-celled life. Yet the microbial world was hidden from larger eyes. It wouldn't remain so forever. Microbes shaped the planet in profound ways. They created the organic compounds that would eventually build larger life. Their metabolic activities slowly altered the atmosphere and ocean chemistry. They formed vast mats of cells that trapped sediment, building layered structures we now see as stromatolites, some over 1 billion years old. Though microscopic and individually simple, bacteria collectively were transforming Earth. They were architects, ecosystem engineers, preparing the stage for life's next act. How bacteria changed the planet. The most dramatic change came from photosynthetic bacteria. Some developed the ability to capture sunlight, using its energy to fix carbon dioxide into organic molecules. This process, photosynthesis, released oxygen as a byproduct. For 1 billion years or more, this oxygen was immediately consumed by reactions with iron and other elements in the ocean and atmosphere. But gradually, inexorably, oxygen accumulated. The atmosphere began to change. This was profound, not just chemically, but biologically. For anaerobic bacteria, those that didn't use oxygen and were actually poisoned by it, this was a catastrophe. Entire populations crashed as their world became toxic, yet others adapted or were replaced by oxygen-using bacteria. Oxygen is a powerful tool for life. It allows much more efficient energy extraction. Organisms that could use oxygen thrived. The toxic waste of one organism became the fuel of another, and the planet itself changed. Oxygen reacted with methane in the atmosphere, removing a greenhouse gas. Temperatures dropped. The planet cooled. Around 2.4 billion years ago, in what's called the Great Oxidation Event, atmospheric oxygen levels rose sharply. Life had changed Earth's chemistry so thoroughly that the planet's climate shifted. It was the first mass extinction. Most anaerobic life died as oxygen poisoned them. But from that catastrophe emerged new possibilities. The Great Oxygenation Event. Around 2.4 billion years ago, something dramatic happened in Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen levels rose sharply, from trace amounts to perhaps 20% of the atmosphere. Not modern levels, but significant. This wasn't pollution or accident, but the culmination of billions of years of photosynthetic bacteria producing oxygen. For millions of years, this oxygen had been consumed in chemical reactions with iron and other reducing compounds. But as those ran out, oxygen began accumulating in the air and ocean. For life adapted to an oxygen-free world, this was catastrophic. Many bacteria died, unable to tolerate the toxic gas, but others possessed or evolved enzymes that could neutralize oxygen, protecting themselves. Some went further, using oxygen as an electron acceptor, extracting even more energy from food. These oxygen-using organisms thrived, diversifying into new forms. The Great Oxidation Event was thus both mass extinction and liberation. It killed one world and created another. The atmosphere transformed from orange-brown to increasingly clear. Ultraviolet radiation, previously unfiltered, now encountered an ozone layer that oxygen created. Life gained protection. The climate cooled. Chemistry changed. It was a turning point, proving that life doesn't merely adapt to planets. Life reshapes planets. When life met the sky, as oxygen accumulated, the atmosphere was transformed. The orange haze cleared. The sky became blue, or at least clearer, lighter. More sunlight penetrated to the surface. Ozone, created when oxygen molecules were split by ultraviolet light and reformed as three-atom ozone, accumulated in the upper atmosphere. This ozone layer blocked the harshest ultraviolet radiation, providing a shield for life on the surface. Before this, life was largely confined to the ocean depths, where water protected organisms from radiation. Now life could venture into shallower waters and onto land. Oxygen itself was useful, a powerful tool for extracting energy. Organisms that could exploit it thrived. Energy became more abundant, allowing organisms to grow larger, more complex. The sky being blue is poetic, but it was also crucial. It represented a changing relationship between life and planet. Life had altered the atmosphere so fundamentally that the sky itself changed color. Later observers of early Earth, had they existed, would have witnessed this transformation. The gradual brightening as oxygen accumulated, the sky shifting from murky to clear. By around 2 billion years ago, oxygen was a permanent, significant atmospheric component. The stage was set for the next chapter in life's story, the rise of complex cells. Around 2 billion years ago, something remarkable happened. Complex cells emerged. Eukaryotic cells with a nucleus and organelles. How this happened is still debated, but the leading theory involves one cell engulfing another. A larger cell consumed a smaller, oxygen-using bacterium. Instead of digesting it, the two formed a partnership. The smaller cell provided efficient energy production, protected by the larger cell's membrane. The larger cell gained access to powerful energy. Mitochondria, the power plants of cells, descended from this ancient engulfment. Later, photosynthetic bacteria were similarly incorporated, becoming chloroplasts. This was symbiosis, cooperation between cells, creating something entirely new. Eukaryotic cells were larger, more complex, with internal compartments that allowed more sophisticated chemistry. DNA was enclosed in a nucleus, protected and organized. This complexity allowed for specialization, different organelles handling different functions. Eukaryotic cells were evolutionary game changers. They enabled larger, more sophisticated organisms. They set the stage for multicellular life. For over 1 billion years, eukaryotes remained microscopic. Single-celled eukaryotes, protists, evolved into thousands of forms, but the complexity they achieved was a threshold, a step towards something greater. The first multicellular life forms. Around 1.2 billion years ago, life took another extraordinary leap. Cells began sticking together, forming multicellular organisms. It started modestly, cells that didn't quite separate after dividing, forming simple filaments. But gradually, cooperation became more sophisticated. Different cells began specializing, one layer for protection, another for reproduction, a third for nutrition. Cooperation between cells allowed the collective to achieve what individuals couldn't. The whole became greater than the sum of parts. Early multicellular organisms were plants and fungi, preserved in rocks as strings and films of cells. They remained small, mostly aquatic, easily overlooked, but they were revolutionary. Multicellular life enabled division of labor. Some cells could specialize in sensing, others in movement, others in digestion. Complexity increased exponentially. Animals emerged, organisms that consumed other organisms rather than making their own food. Simple animals, jellyfish-like creatures, appeared perhaps 600 million years ago. They were soft-bodied, leaving few fossils, but they proved multicellularity worked. Life wasn't just more cells cooperating. It was cells organizing into hierarchical systems, with tissues and organs, and increasingly sophisticated functions. The age of microscopic life was ending. The age of visible creatures, of animals and plants we'd recognize, was dawning. Life expands beneath the waves. For the first 3 billion years, life remained largely microscopic. But starting around 600 million years ago, larger organisms appeared, preserved in ancient rocks. Ediacaran fauna, strange, soft-bodied creatures, populated ancient seafloors. Discs, fronds, tubes. They were unlike any modern animals, exploring body plans that ultimately led nowhere. Yet they proved the ocean could support large, diverse life. Then, around 541 million years ago, something extraordinary happened. The Cambrian period began, and suddenly the fossil record exploded with visible life. Animals with shells, hard parts, increasingly sophisticated bodies appeared. Trilobites, brachiopods, early fish. The diversity was staggering. In just a few million years, most major animal groups appeared. Why the sudden explosion? Possibly higher oxygen levels allowed larger organisms. Possibly predators appeared, driving prey to evolve shells for defense. Possibly the right environmental conditions converged. Whatever the reason, evolution suddenly had more room to innovate. The seas filled with life, predators and prey, grazers and filter feeders, bizarre creatures and increasingly familiar forms. Fish appeared, animals with backbones, with fins, with jaws. Intelligence began to emerge in the form of eyes, nervous systems. The ocean was no longer a realm of microbes, but a vibrant ecosystem of visible animals. The Cambrian explosion of diversity. Around 541 million years ago, evolution exploded in creative diversity. The Cambrian period saw more new animal body plans emerge than appear in all subsequent time. Trilobites, armored arthropods with complex eyes, dominated. Strange predators like Anomalocaris hunted smaller prey. Brachiopods, shell-like organisms flourished. Primitive fish appeared, jawless creatures with simple backbones. Starfish, snails, worms of every description populated the seafloor. It was as though evolution was experimenting frantically, testing every possible design, every viable body plan. Most of these Cambrian creatures didn't survive. Their lineages failed, went extinct, but some survived, radiated, founded the animal groups we know today. From Cambrian fish came all vertebrates, all amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, including us. The Cambrian explosion was life discovering what was possible, testing solutions to basic problems: how to move, how to eat, how to defend yourself, how to sense your environment. Evolution found countless answers. The Cambrian seas were bizarre to our eyes, but alive with innovation. They represented life becoming visible, complex, and varied at a scale we could see. It was a threshold moment, the transition from microscopic to macroscopic life, from simple to intricate, the birth of eyes and movement. Around 530 million years ago, something clicked. Eyes appeared, multiple times. In multiple animal groups, eyes evolved independently. Trilobites had sophisticated compound eyes. Early fish developed camera-like eyes. Eyes are powerful evolutionary tools. They allow sensing at a distance, predicting threats, finding food. With eyes came predation that could be targeted, sophisticated hunting. This drove an evolutionary arms race. Prey needed better eyes to spot predators, faster movement to escape. Predators needed sharper vision, faster speed to catch prey. Movement became more sophisticated. Fins appeared, allowing precise steering in water. Arthropod legs diversified, enabling crawling and climbing. Animals were no longer passive drifters, but active participants in their world. Intelligence, in the form of nervous systems and brains, evolved to process sensory information and control sophisticated movement. With eyes came the need for brains. With brains came behavior, decision-making, memory. Animals could learn from experience, adapt their tactics. The Cambrians saw the emergence of behaviors we'd recognize: hunting, hiding, fleeing. Life transformed from passive chemistry to active agency. Eyes and movement changed everything. They made life visible in a new way, not just as passive structures, but as creatures with agency, with apparent purpose. Ancient creatures of the sea. For hundreds of millions of years after the Cambrian, the seas were dominated by arthropods and fish. Trilobites ruled for nearly 300 million years. Incredibly successful and diverse, huge sea scorpions appeared, predators with massive claws. Strange armored fish dominated mid-Paleozoic seas. Then fish diversified explosively. Some grew jaws, becoming efficient predators. Others evolved paired fins that could manipulate themselves, becoming increasingly complex. Around 375 million years ago, a remarkable transition began. Some fish developed increasingly robust fins, bones becoming stronger, allowing them to haul themselves briefly onto land. These were lobe-finned fish, transitional forms between aquatic and terrestrial life. They still needed water to reproduce, still breathed primarily through gills, but could venture onto land, perhaps escaping predators or seeking food. Meanwhile, the ocean itself was filled with increasingly sophisticated life. Ammonites, spiral-shelled cephalopods, appeared, grew to enormous sizes, dominated. Sharks evolved, efficient predators that persist today. Coral reefs appeared, creating undersea cities of life. The ancient ocean was more alien than modern seas, yet recognizably an ocean, filled with predators and prey, competition and cooperation. Plants begin to conquer the land. While animals were still perfecting life in the ocean, plants were beginning their slow conquest of land. Around 450 million years ago, simple plants, barely more than algae, colonized bare rock and soil near the shore. They were tiny, perhaps just a few centimeters tall. They had no roots, just rhizoids to anchor them. No leaves to efficiently capture sunlight, just stems. Yet they were pioneering, establishing the beachhead for plant life on land. These early plants were entirely dependent on water. They needed it to reproduce, spreading via spores that required moisture. They couldn't survive in dry conditions, but they proved land was colonizable. Over millions of years, plants became increasingly sophisticated. Roots evolved, allowing them to tap deep soil moisture and draw up nutrients. Leaves became more efficient at capturing sunlight. Vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, transported water and nutrients, allowing plants to grow taller. By 350 million years ago, the first forests appeared, giant tree-sized plants dominating landscapes. They were strange by modern standards, with different architecture, different reproduction, but they were recognizably forests, creating shade, creating structure, creating the first truly terrestrial ecosystems. The first forests on Earth, around 350 million years ago, the landscape transformed. The first true forests covered the land. They weren't like modern forests. The trees were primitive, without flowers, reproducing via spores. Ferns grew to enormous sizes. Lycopods, club mosses, reached over 100 feet tall, creating dense canopies. Progymnosperms, early seed plants, began to appear. These forests were the world's first, and their impact was dramatic. They created shade on the ground, modifying local climate and soil. They transpired water into the air, affecting atmospheric humidity. Their roots dug into rock, weathering it into soil where organisms could live. Forests are engineers, ecosystem architects. They create conditions for other life, enable complexity. These early forests hosted the first truly terrestrial animals. Insects diversified explosively. The oldest known insect fossils are from this time. Arthropods, spiders, scorpions, centipedes, evolved to hunt in the new environment. Early vertebrates were beginning their transition to land. These forests were oxygen-producing engines, releasing massive amounts of oxygen from photosynthesis. Atmospheric oxygen rose, reaching levels perhaps higher than today. The world was becoming greener, more oxygenated, increasingly habitable for complex terrestrial life. Forests changed everything. Insects take to the skies. Around 350 million years ago, insects did something remarkable. They took flight. Insects were the first animals to fly, preceding birds and bats by tens of millions of years. The first flying insects were dragonflies, massive, with wingspans reaching 2 feet. How wings evolved is still debated. They might have started as extensions on legs used to catch sunlight, or flaps used to escape predators, or structures for swimming in water before insects colonized land. However they began, they became magnificently adapted for flight. Flight was revolutionary. It allowed insects to escape predators, to migrate to new territories, to hunt flying prey. Insects diversified explosively into countless forms, some eating plants, others eating insects, some feeding on nectar. These early insects were all that flew. The skies belonged entirely to them for nearly 100 million years. Then eventually parasaurs appeared, flying reptiles, later birds. But insects had millennia of freedom. Their diversity reflects their success. Today, insects comprise more species than all other animals combined. Their evolutionary innovations, flight, metamorphosis, complex sensory systems, shaped life on land. They made the insects we know today unbelievably diverse, unbelievably successful. Amphibians walk on land for the first time. Around 320 million years ago, vertebrates made the critical transition to land. Amphibians appeared. Animals with limbs rather than fins, lungs rather than just gills, bodies adapted for terrestrial life. Yet they weren't fully committed to land. They remained tied to water. They had to breed in water, their eggs lacking protection and needing moisture. Larvae were aquatic, metamorphosing into land-dwelling adults. But on land, they thrived. Amphibians could walk, climb, explore. They hunted insects. Some grew large, dominating their habitats. The age of amphibians lasted perhaps 100 million years. Great salamanders and newt-like creatures ruled the swamps. In time, some amphibians evolved eggs with shells, allowing reproduction away from water. These were reptiles, animals fully adapted to land. Reptiles could lay eggs anywhere, in burrows, under rocks, wherever they chose. They were no longer bound to water after reproduction. This freedom allowed them to diversify, to explore every terrestrial habitat. Amphibians didn't disappear, but were eclipsed. Reptiles inherited the land, set the stage for the next chapter in life's story. The age of reptiles begins. Around 300 million years ago, reptiles appeared and began their long dominance. They had advantages over amphibians. Their shelled eggs could be laid anywhere. Their skin was tougher, less permeable, reducing water loss. They had better locomotion, more efficient metabolism. Reptiles diversified rapidly. Early on, they filled various niches, some herbivorous, some predatory, some small, some growing large. The first synapsids appeared, bizarre reptile-like creatures that would eventually lead to mammals. For about 150 million years, reptiles ruled. The Carboniferous period saw vast forests and swamps, with amphibians still dominant. But gradually, reptiles became more prevalent. As the climate changed, becoming drier, reptiles with their water-conserving adaptations thrived while amphibians struggled. By the Permian period, reptiles had eclipsed amphibians, yet reptile dominance was challenged by the Permian-Triassic extinction event, the worst extinction in Earth's history. Over 90% of marine species died. Most terrestrial life perished. It was a near extinction of life itself. But some reptiles survived. They inherited a devastated world and rapidly diversified. One lineage would eventually dominate in a way no creature had before or since: the dinosaurs. The rise of dinosaurs. After the Permian extinction, life slowly recovered. Reptiles that survived the catastrophe diversified in the emptied world. Around 230 million years ago, dinosaurs appeared. They weren't initially dominant or particularly large. Early dinosaurs were modest, some just a few feet long, but they had advantages. They were bipedal, walking on hind legs, which made them efficient runners. They were active, with higher metabolic rates than typical reptiles. They had more sophisticated locomotion, and probably some level of parental care. These advantages allowed dinosaurs to gradually outcompete other reptiles. For about 50 million years, they grew in diversity and size. Then, around 200 million years ago, something shifted. Dinosaurs suddenly became dominant. Most other reptiles disappeared. Dinosaurs inherited the world. From this point until 66 million years ago, dinosaurs ruled. They weren't a single unified group, but many lineages, many body plans. Some were tiny, some gigantic, some were herbivorous, some carnivorous, some were fast, some slow. Dinosaurs achieved a diversity that allowed them to occupy every terrestrial ecological niche. The rule of giants. For over 130 million years, dinosaurs dominated Earth. They were the terrestrial megafauna, the top predators, the enormous herbivores that shaped landscapes. Sauropods, massive long-necked herbivores, reached lengths over 100 feet, weighing as much as 80 tons. Theropods, bipedal carnivores, ranged from chicken-sized to Tyrannosaurus rex, perhaps the largest terrestrial predator ever. Ceratopsians had elaborate horns and frills. Ankylosaurs were armored tanks. Stegosaurs carried plates along their spines. The diversity was staggering. Dinosaurs occupied every habitat: deserts, forests, plains, mountainous regions. They were the largest land animals ever to exist, but they were also common, successful, not rare. Fossils show dinosaur populations were vast, occupying every continent, too. They dominated for so long, over 130 million years, that it seems they might have ruled forever. Modern mammal diversity, by contrast, took perhaps 50 million years. Dinosaurs were evolutionary extraordinaires, incredibly successful, adapted to virtually every environment. Yet they couldn't adapt to what came next. A catastrophe so sudden, so violent, that even their success couldn't save them. They ruled until they didn't. A reign that ended in fire. Life flourishing in warm, ancient seas. While dinosaurs dominated the land, the seas teemed with life equally diverse and remarkable. Plesiosaurs, long-necked marine reptiles, cruised the oceans. Ichthyosaurs, marine reptiles shaped like dolphins, hunted fish and smaller prey. Mosasaurs, enormous predators, dominated the shallower seas. Ammonites had diversified into countless forms, spiral shells of every size and pattern. Fish had become sophisticated, with modern body shapes and hunting strategies. Sharks continued their reign as ocean predators. Early whales hadn't yet appeared, but countless marine reptiles filled that niche. Coral reefs flourished, created by corals and teeming with symbiotic life. The Cretaceous seas were warm, oxygen-rich, abundant with food. Marine life was at least as diverse as terrestrial dinosaurs. It was a period of plenty, of flourishing, of evolution exploring possibilities. Then, like the land, the seas changed. Not gradually, but catastrophically. The extinction that killed dinosaurs devastated marine life as well. Many marine reptiles vanished. Ammonites disappeared entirely. But life persisted. The vacuum left by extinction created opportunities for survivors. The mystery of mass extinctions. Throughout Earth's history, there have been 5 major extinction events when 75 to 96% of species disappeared. These weren't gradual declines, but rapid collapses. The causes vary. The Ordovician extinction resulted from glaciation and climate change. The late Devonian was complex, perhaps involving climate, oxygen, and asteroid impact. The Permian-Triassic extinction involved volcanic activity, climate change, and possibly asteroid impact, creating a perfect storm of planetary dysfunction. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction involved volcanism and climate change. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction was triggered by an asteroid, though volcanism contributed. Each extinction removed dominant groups, clearing the board for new players. Yet each extinction also meant incomprehensible suffering and loss. Species that had thrived for millions of years vanished. Ecosystems collapsed. The world transformed. Yet from extinction comes opportunity. Species that survived inherited a less competitive world, able to radiate into empty niches. Without extinctions, dinosaurs might still dominate. Humans almost certainly wouldn't exist. Extinction shapes evolutionary history, more than gradual change, creating punctuation marks in life's narrative, sudden shifts that redirect its course. The fall of the dinosaurs. 66 million years ago, catastrophe struck. An asteroid, roughly 6 miles in diameter, hit the Yucatan Peninsula, creating Chicxulub crater. The impact released energy equivalent to millions of nuclear weapons. A shock wave flattened everything for hundreds of miles. An enormous tsunami devastated coastlines. Massive wildfires spread globally. Dust and ash filled the atmosphere, blocking sunlight. For months, perhaps a year, global temperatures plummeted. Plants died. Herbivores starved. Carnivores followed. The food chain collapsed. Volcanic activity, already active, intensified from the impact, further polluting the atmosphere. The sun was blocked. Temperatures oscillated from extreme cold to extreme heat. It was as though the planet was trying to kill off all life, and it nearly succeeded. Massive dinosaurs, dependent on vast food supplies, couldn't survive. Some small dinosaurs survived, but most didn't. 75% of all species vanished. The reign of dinosaurs ended not gradually, but abruptly, a single event that rewrote the world. Yet life persisted. Small creatures survived. Amphibians, reptiles, mammals, insects. From that darkness, new life emerged. New forms, new dominant structures. The fall of dinosaurs created the space for mammals to inherit the world. The rise of mammals. Before the asteroid, mammals were small, nocturnal, insignificant. They were overshadowed by dinosaurs, occupying just a narrow ecological niche. Small insectivores, hunting in the dark, avoiding the dominant diurnal reptiles. Mammals had advantages, despite their smallness. They were warm-blooded, maintaining internal temperature. They were typically smarter than reptiles. They had parental care, nursing young. But on a dinosaur-dominated world, these advantages were irrelevant. Dinosaurs were too dominant. Then the asteroid struck. Suddenly, the world was dark, cold, chaotic. Small, warm-blooded mammals could maintain body temperature. Their nocturnal nature a disadvantage before, became useful in a darkened world. They could hunt insects in chaos, while massive creatures starved. When the darkness cleared and the world stabilized, mammals inherited it. For the next 65 million years, mammals diversified explosively. Within a few million years, there were primates, ungulates, carnivores, and countless other forms. Some grew large, filling the niches dinosaurs had occupied. Some remained small, specialized for particular environments. Mammals became the most successful land vertebrates, reaching their peak diversity in the present day. Yet all of this is traceable to that moment when catastrophe struck, when dinosaurs fell and mammals rose. Life after disaster. In the aftermath of the asteroid, Earth was transformed. Forests were reduced to ash. Oceans were dark and turbid. Temperatures swung wildly. Yet life was resilient. Within years of the impact, plants were beginning to recover, drawing energy from seeds, from deep roots, from resilience evolved through previous challenges. Insects survived in vast numbers, feeding on decaying matter. Amphibians, perhaps more adaptable than larger creatures, recovered relatively quickly. Small reptiles, including early mammals, thrived. Within a few thousand years, basic ecosystems were reforming. Within a million years, forests were recovering. Life took roughly 3 million years to reach previous diversity levels, perhaps 10 million to fully recover. But the recovery was different. The creatures that inherited this new world were different. Dinosaurs were gone. Marine reptiles were gone. Ammonites were gone. New predators, mammals and birds, replaced them. Ecosystems reorganized around different key species, yet the overall structure, predators, prey, herbivores, carnivores, persisted. Life adapted to catastrophe, flexed around it, ultimately persisted. This pattern repeats throughout Earth's history. Catastrophe comes, life seems doomed. Yet somehow, resilience emerges. Survivors diversify. Ecosystems rebuild, different but functional. It's life's defining characteristic: adaptation, persistence, ultimately victory over adversity. Birds emerge from dinosaurs. Here's something surprising. Birds are dinosaurs. Not ancient history, but living dinosaurs. Birds descended from small theropod dinosaurs, probably during the Jurassic period. Feathers evolved, not for flight initially, but possibly for thermoregulation, for courtship display, or for insulating eggs. Early feathered dinosaurs couldn't fly, but they had feathers. Then some lineages gradually became increasingly adapted to flight. Arms became wings, bones became lighter, scales became more feather-like. Archaeopteryx, found in Germany, shows this transition: a dinosaur with feathers, capable of flying, yet retaining dinosaurian features like a bony tail and teeth. By the time dinosaurs went extinct, early birds existed, small creatures that survived the catastrophe. After extinction, birds diversified explosively. They filled niches from small insectivores to enormous flightless hunters. Most died out, but enough survived that birds radiated into the thousands of species we see today. Every sparrow, every eagle, every penguin is technically a dinosaur, not because birds are descended from dinosaurs, but because birds are dinosaurs, living representatives of the theropod lineage. The most dominant group of dinosaurs didn't go extinct. They just changed, adapted, evolved into new forms while retaining their essential nature. The ice ages begin to shape the planet. Around 2.5 million years ago, Earth's climate shifted. Ice ages began. Cycles of glaciation and warming that would characterize the subsequent millions of years. Ice sheets up to a mile thick covered the northern continents. Sea levels dropped, sometimes by hundreds of feet. Then warming came. Ice retreated. Sea levels rose. These cycles, each lasting roughly 100,000 years, were profound. They shaped landscapes, created new habitats, drove evolution. Animals evolved adaptations to cold, thick fur, large body size, efficient metabolism. Mammoths roamed ice age steppes. Saber-toothed cats hunted from the shadows. Woolly rhinos grazed on frozen tundra. Humans, newly evolved, had to adapt or perish. Some humans moved into ice age climates, developing sophisticated hunting strategies, creating clothing, mastering fire. Others stayed in warmer regions. Ice ages created selection pressure that drove human intelligence, ingenuity, culture. The ice ages were harsh, punishing, but they made the world what it became. They created varied landscapes, diverse habitats, conditions where mammals flourished. They led ultimately to human dominance, to consciousness becoming aware of itself. The great adaptations of life. Life's fundamental strategy is adaptation. Each species adapts to its environment, its predators, its prey. Over millions of years, these adaptations accumulate. Polar bears evolved white fur for camouflage in snow. Arctic foxes developed their small, rounded ears to minimize heat loss. Penguins evolved dense feathers and flipper-like wings to swim in freezing oceans. Desert plants developed succulent leaves to store water, roots that extend deep underground. Cacti evolved spines instead of leaves, reducing water loss. Every organism is a masterpiece of adaptation, a solution to specific environmental challenges. Adaptation isn't conscious. It's the result of natural selection, organisms better adapted to their environment, surviving more often, reproducing more successfully. Over generations, adaptive traits become more common. Maladapted organisms fail to survive or reproduce. Gradually, species become increasingly specialized for their particular niche. This is evolution's genius. It's endlessly creative, finding solutions to every problem nature presents. A hummingbird's beak, perfectly shaped for specific flowers. A snake's heat-sensing pits. A bat's sonar. An octopus's intelligence and color-changing skin. Each adaptation is remarkable, crafted by millions of years of selection pressure. Life's diversity reflects the vast number of niches available and adaptation's ability to fill them. Survival through fire and ice. Life has survived fire and ice, volcanic catastrophes and glacial periods, droughts and floods. Each challenge has been met with adaptation. Organisms evolved fire resistance, growing quickly or having seeds that germinate after fires. Organisms evolved ice resistance, surviving freezing through antifreeze proteins or special adaptations. Organisms evolved drought resistance, surviving years without water through dormancy, storage, or specialized physiology. Organisms evolved flood resistance, with seeds that germinate in water or animals that migrate to higher ground. Life is resilient in ways we barely understand. Some organisms enter cryptobiosis, a state of suspended animation, waiting for conditions to improve. Some can survive years without water or food in this state. Others have evolved elaborate behaviors, migration, hibernation, dormancy, that allow survival through harsh seasons. Life's diversity means some organism will likely survive almost any disaster, even in the most extreme conditions. Boiling springs, frozen tundra, salt lakes, deep caves. Life persists. This resilience isn't just biological but also behavioral and cultural. Humans survive not just through physical adaptation, but through intelligence, technology, culture. The diversity of Earth's ecosystems. Earth hosts an incredible variety of ecosystems, each with unique conditions and adapted life. Tropical rainforests are hot, wet, incredibly biodiverse. A single acre might contain more tree species than exist in all of North America. Savannas are grasslands with scattered trees, shaped by fire and seasonal rainfall. Temperate forests have 4 distinct seasons, with dormancy characterizing winter. Deserts are dry, harsh, hosting specialized creatures and plants. Mountains have altitudinal zones, tropical at the base, tundra-like at the peak. Coral reefs are underwater ecosystems of extraordinary complexity and beauty. Kelp forests are underwater jungles, kelp reaching 150 feet from the seafloor, wetlands, marshes, swamps, mangroves are transition zones between aquatic and terrestrial life. Each ecosystem has characteristic organisms, food chains, nutrient cycles. Each is balanced through millions of years of coevolution. Predators control prey populations. Plants compete for light and water. Decomposers recycle nutrients. Remove one element, and the entire system becomes unstable. Ecosystems are fragile despite appearing robust. They're interdependent systems, where everything connects to everything else. Understanding this interconnection is crucial to understanding how life persists and what might disrupt it. Forests, breathing life into the air. Forests are the lungs of the planet, producing oxygen, absorbing carbon dioxide, regulating climate. Large forests create their own weather, with transpiration from leaves releasing water vapor that forms clouds. Rainforests produce 20 to 40% of Earth's oxygen. They absorb enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, mitigating climate change. They moderate temperature, keeping regions cooler through shade and evaporation. Forests prevent erosion, their roots holding soil in place. They filter water, rainfall percolating through soil and leaf litter before reaching groundwater. Forests store nutrients in their biomass and recycled through decomposition. They provide habitat for over 80% of terrestrial species. Forests are storehouses of biodiversity, places where countless forms of life coexist in dense, intricate relationships. A single tree might host hundreds of species: insects, fungi, birds, mammals, lichens. Forests are cities of life, vertical and horizontal structure, creating countless microhabitats. When forests burn or are cleared, it's catastrophic. Carbon is released. Species lose habitat. Water cycles are disrupted. Climate is affected. Forests take centuries to recover from severe damage. Yet forests are resilient. If left alone, they recover, regrow, rebuild. They're among the most productive ecosystems on Earth. The balance of oceans and atmosphere. The ocean and atmosphere form an integrated system, each affecting the other. Carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, forming carbonic acid. This affects pH, chemistry, ocean life. Warming oceans release more carbon dioxide. Cooling oceans absorb it. This feedback loop has been crucial to climate stability. The ocean moderates temperature, its thermal mass, preventing extreme swings. Ocean currents transport heat globally, creating patterns that affect weather. Phytoplankton in the ocean produce roughly half of Earth's oxygen. They're the base of marine food chains, consumed by zooplankton, which feed fish, which feed larger predators. The ocean is perhaps more crucial to Earth's life support systems than we fully appreciate. Yet oceans are vulnerable to disruption. Ocean acidification from excess carbon dioxide stresses calcifying organisms. Warming alters currents and disrupts ecosystems. Pollution accumulates. Overfishing removes key species. The ocean's resilience is being tested, yet it's also remarkably forgiving if given space. Studies show that when fishing pressure is removed, fish populations recover. When pollution stops, ecosystems begin healing. The ocean is resilient, but not infinitely so. Coral reefs, the rainforests of the sea. Coral reefs are among Earth's most spectacular and biodiverse ecosystems. They occupy less than 1% of the ocean floor, yet host 25% of marine species. Reefs form through symbiosis between coral animals and zooxanthella, photosynthetic algae, living inside coral cells. The algae produce food from sunlight. The coral provides protection and nutrients. The partnership allows corals to thrive in nutrient-poor tropical waters. Reefs create structure, limestone skeletons of billions of coral polyps, forming the reef framework. This structure provides habitat for fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and countless other organisms. Reefs are incredibly complex. with predators, prey, herbivores, algae, sponges, and microbes, all interdependent. Small changes can cascade through the system. If water temperature rises, corals expel their zooxanthellae, losing their source of food. The coral bleaches, appearing white as the algae disappear, and dies if conditions don't improve. Pollution and overfishing also stress reefs. Despite their beauty and productivity, reefs are fragile. They occupy narrow environmental ranges. Specific temperature, salinity, light, climate change threatens them. Yet some reefs show remarkable resilience, recovering from bleaching events if conditions improve. Protecting reefs requires protecting oceans, reducing pollution, addressing climate change. Deserts, masters of survival. Deserts appear barren, but host specialized life, adapted to extreme scarcity. Desert plants have evolved remarkable adaptations, deep roots reaching water, far below the surface, waxy coatings, reducing water loss, leaves reduced to spines, stems becoming photosynthetic. Desert animals are mostly nocturnal, active when it's cool, dormant during heat. Some never drink, deriving water from food. Some can enter torpor, reducing metabolism to near-death levels. Some have reflective coats, reducing heat absorption. Some have concentrated urine, minimizing water loss. Deserts host unexpected diversity. Despite appearing empty, beneath the sand, microbes thrive. Plants and animals have adapted so completely that deserts have their own specialized ecosystems. When rare rains fall, deserts transform. Seeds that have lain dormant for years germinate. Plants flower explosively. The entire ecosystem awakens briefly before dormancy returns. Deserts demonstrate life's incredible adaptability. They're extreme environments where only the most specialized survive. Yet life persists, proving that almost no environment is truly uninhabitable. Deserts are crucibles of adaptation, where selection pressure creates remarkable solutions to survival and harshness. The cold kingdom of the poles. The polar regions, Arctic and Antarctic, are frozen kingdoms, covered in ice, harsh beyond most human experience. Yet life thrives even here. Arctic waters are among the most productive on Earth, rich with nutrients, supporting vast populations of fish, whales, seals. Arctic ice creates a unique habitat. Algae grow on the underside of ice. Small fish and krill feed on algae. Larger fish feed on smaller fish. Seals and whales feed on fish. Polar bears hunt seals. The food chain is short but intense. In Antarctica, even more extreme, life is primarily aquatic. Penguins dive deep, hunting fish and krill. Whales migrate seasonally, feeding in Antarctic waters during summer when productivity peaks. Seals hunt in the icy waters. On land, few creatures survive. Some insects, some lichens, some mosses. Life in polar regions is specialized, adapted to cold, adapted to seasonal extremes of light and darkness. Yet these regions aren't sterile. They're alive with activity during the productive season. They're also among the most vulnerable to climate change. Melting ice disrupts ecosystems. Changing temperatures alter migration patterns. Polar regions are changing faster than almost anywhere else on Earth, with profound implications for global climate and life adapted to cold. The power of evolution. Evolution is the fundamental principle underlying all life. It explains diversity, adaptation, and the origin of species. Evolution is both theory and observable fact. We see it in the fossil record. We see it in the incredible variety of life. We see it in the genetic code shared by all living things. We even observe it in real time in fast reproducing organisms. Evolution isn't a process with direction or purpose. It's simply that organisms that better survive and reproduce leave more offspring. Over generations, beneficial traits become more common. Maladapted organisms become less common. Environments change. Selection changes. Species change. Evolution is elegantly simple. Survival of those best adapted to their environment. Yet from this simple mechanism emerges all the complexity of life. Every animal, every plant, every fungus is a product of evolution. Every adaptation, every behavior, every structure, all shaped by selection over millions or billions of years. Evolution is perhaps the most powerful idea in biology, explaining how life became what it is and continues changing. The story written in DNA. DNA carries the story of life. Every organism on Earth shares the same basic genetic code. The DNA molecule contains instructions for building and maintaining organisms, genes that code for proteins, regulatory sequences that control when genes activate. DNA is copied, passed from parent to offspring, generation to generation. Yet DNA isn't perfectly copied. Mutations occur, errors that change genes. Most mutations are harmful or neutral, but occasionally, mutations are beneficial, improving survival or reproduction. These beneficial mutations become more common through selection. DNA also reveals relationships. Species with similar DNA are closely related, descended from common ancestors. By comparing DNA across species, we can reconstruct evolutionary history. We can see humans are most closely related to other apes, more distantly to monkeys, even more distantly to mammals. Generally, DNA shows that all life is connected, all descended from common ancestors. We're related to every organism on Earth through shared ancestry. DNA is the molecule of life, the physical basis of inheritance, the mechanism through which evolution operates. It's perhaps the most important molecule ever discovered, the key to understanding life itself. How mutations create new life. Mutations are changes in DNA, copying errors that alter genes. Most mutations are neutral or harmful, but occasionally, a mutation gives an organism an advantage: better camouflage, more efficient metabolism, improved sensory perception. That organism survives better, reproduces more, passes the advantageous mutation to offspring. Over generations, the mutation spreads through the population. If the advantage is significant, the mutation may eventually become universal. Mutations are the raw material of evolution. Without them, all offspring would be identical to parents. With mutations, variation exists. Without variation, natural selection has nothing to act upon. Mutations create the variation that allows evolution to proceed. The mechanism is random. Mutations don't occur because they're beneficial. They just happen. And if they're beneficial, they spread. Mutations range from microscopic to dramatic. A single nucleotide change might make minimal difference. A larger deletion might remove a gene entirely. Transposable elements, chunks of DNA that can move around the genome, can cause major rearrangements. Over millions of years, accumulating mutations transform species entirely. Species that were recognizably similar become radically different. Mutations are how life explores possibility space, how new forms emerge, how adaptation occurs. Natural selection at work. Natural selection is the mechanism of evolution. Organisms vary in traits. Some traits help survival and reproduction. Organisms with advantageous traits survive more often, reproduce more successfully, pass traits to more offspring. Over generations, advantageous traits become more common. Disadvantageous traits become rarer. The population evolves. Natural selection doesn't require consciousness or planning. It's simply that better adapted organisms leave more offspring. The process is undirected. It goes wherever environmental pressures push it. In stable environments, selection favors traits that maintain current adaptation. In changing environments, selection favors different traits. When an environment changes rapidly, populations that adapt quickly survive. Those that can't adapt go extinct. Natural selection has been operating for 4 billion years, sculpting life into current forms. It explains why species are adapted to their environments, why organisms have seemingly purposeful designs, why there's such incredible diversity. We see natural selection in action. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria emerging in response to antibiotics, moths changing color in response to industrial pollution, populations adapting to new environments in just decades. Natural selection is the most important mechanism in biology, the key to understanding life's diversity. Cooperation and competition in nature. Life is often portrayed as competition, survival of the fittest, predators versus prey, organism versus environment. Yet cooperation is equally important. Organisms cooperate in countless ways. Plants provide nectar to pollinators, which spread pollen. Animals form groups for defense or hunting efficiency. Parents care for offspring, ensuring their survival. Organisms compete for resources, food, water, light, space. This competition drives adaptation, but organisms also cooperate, forming relationships that benefit both parties. Symbiosis is widespread. Organisms living together to mutual advantage. Even within organisms, cooperation is fundamental. Your body is composed of trillions of cells cooperating, each performing specific functions for the collective. Your gut harbors trillions of bacteria cooperating with your digestive system. Evolution operates through competition and cooperation simultaneously. Competition drives adaptation and specialization. Cooperation enables complex structures and behaviors. Neither is more fundamental. Both are necessary. Life's diversity and complexity emerge from this balance. Understanding evolution requires understanding both the competitive and cooperative aspects of life. The web of life. All life is interconnected in vast, complex networks. Each organism eats and is eaten, competes and cooperates, influences and is influenced by countless others. Remove one species and cascading effects ripple through the ecosystem. This interconnectedness is the web of life. At the base are producers, plants and photosynthetic organisms, capturing energy from sunlight. Primary consumers, herbivores, eat producers. Secondary consumers, carnivores, eat herbivores. Decomposers, bacteria and fungi, break down dead matter, recycling nutrients. Energy flows through the web, gradually dissipating. Nutrients cycle, return to soil, absorbed by plants, consumed by animals, return to soil when organisms die. The web is hierarchical in energy, but cyclical in nutrients. Understanding the web of life is crucial to ecology and conservation. Disrupting any part affects the whole. Removing apex predators can lead to herbivore population explosions, decimating vegetation. Removing pollinators can eliminate plants that depend on them. Introducing invasive species can disrupt native food chains. Yet the web also shows resilience. Redundancy means multiple species often fill similar roles. If one fails, others compensate. Ecosystems can absorb some disruption, but sufficient disruption can collapse systems, eliminating complexity. How plants and animals depend on each other. Plants and animals are profoundly interdependent. Plants produce oxygen and food energy captured from sunlight. Animals consume plants and oxygen. Animals pollinate plants, disperse seeds and fertilize soil with their waste. Many plants have evolved specifically to attract pollinators. Flowers shaped and colored to attract bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. Some plants depend almost entirely on specific animals for pollination. Many seeds have evolved to attach to animal fur or be eaten and dispersed. Animals depend on plants for food and shelter. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat herbivores. Without plants, animals would have no food source. Many animals provide services plants need. Soil organisms break down dead matter into nutrients. Plants absorb. Mycorrhizal fungi connect to plant roots, exchanging nutrients for sugars. Insects pollinate flowers. Birds and mammals disperse seeds. This interdependence is so complete that it's impossible to imagine either succeeding without the other. Evolution has sculpted plants and animals into complementary forms. A flower's shape matches a pollinator's body. Seed size matches how an animal carries it. Colors attract visual animals. Scents attract olfactory animals. The mutual dependencies are countless, each species shaped by interactions with others. It's a symphony of coevolution, millions of species dancing together in intricate patterns. The role of fungi in the cycle of life. Fungi occupy a unique ecological role. They're neither plant nor animal, but their own kingdom. Fungi are decomposers, breaking down dead organic matter and recycling nutrients. They secrete enzymes that digest material outside their bodies, then absorb the nutrients. This process is essential for ecosystems. Without fungal decomposition, dead matter would accumulate. Nutrients would be locked away. New growth would be impossible. Fungi also form symbiotic relationships with plants. Mycorrhizal fungi connect to plant roots, exchanging nutrients for sugars the plant produces. This relationship is so ancient and widespread that most plants depend on it. Fungi also form lichens with algae, creating structures that can survive in barren environments. Some fungi are parasitic, feeding on living organisms. Some are predatory, trapping and consuming nematodes. Others form fruiting bodies, mushrooms, that produce spores for reproduction. Fungi are incredibly diverse, with millions of species occupying every habitat on Earth. They're essential to soil health, ecosystem function, nutrient cycling, yet fungi are often overlooked, regarded as merely a food source or curiosity. Understanding their ecological role reveals they're among the most important organisms on Earth. The hidden life of soil. Soil seems inert, just dirt. Yet soil is alive, teeming with microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and countless others. A teaspoon of soil contains more organisms than humans on Earth. Soil organisms break down dead matter, releasing nutrients. Plants absorb. They form relationships with plant roots. They produce compounds that improve soil structure. Soil is perhaps the most biodiverse habitat on Earth. Per unit volume, organisms in soil include decomposers, predators, parasites, symbionts, entire ecosystems operating in darkness beneath our feet. Soil formation takes hundreds of years. It's built from weathered rock, organic matter, and the accumulated activity of generations of organisms. Soil represents incredible complexity. Different organisms occupy different niches. Different soil types, sand, silt, clay, support different communities. Soil is fundamental to terrestrial life. Without it, plants can't grow. Without plants, herbivores starve. The food chain collapses. Yet soil is threatened. Erosion removes it. Pollution contaminates it. Compaction damages structure. Replacing lost soil takes centuries. Protecting soil is protecting the foundation of terrestrial ecosystems. Microbes that rule the Earth. Microbes, bacteria and archaea, are the most abundant and ecologically important organisms on Earth. They occupy every habitat, from hot springs to frozen tundra, from deep oceanic trenches to the upper atmosphere. Microbes are incredibly diverse. There are likely more microbial species than all other organisms combined. They perform essential functions: decomposition, nitrogen fixation, photosynthesis, nutrient cycling. Microbes make up a significant fraction of Earth's biomass. They're the primary drivers of biogeochemical cycles. Without microbes, life on Earth would collapse within days. Microbes in the human body outnumber human cells. They aid digestion, produce vitamins, protect against pathogens. Many diseases are caused by pathogenic microbes, but most microbes are harmless or beneficial. Microbes are ancient, appearing over 3 billion years ago. For nearly 2 billion years, they were the only life. They remain the dominant form of life on Earth. Understanding microbes is understanding the foundation of ecosystems, the basis of all other life. The power of symbiosis. Symbiosis, organisms living together, is more important than we typically recognize. Every organism has symbionts. Humans have bacteria in our guts. Plants have fungi in their roots. Corals have algae in their cells. Lichens are fungi and algae together. Symbiosis isn't rare or exceptional. It's ubiquitous. Some symbiotic relationships are facultative. Partners can survive separately. Others are obligate. Partners can't survive independently. Some are mutualistic. Both benefit. Others are parasitic. One benefits. One is harmed. Some are commensal. One benefits. One is unaffected. Symbiosis is a mechanism of evolution. It can create entirely new organisms. Eukaryotic cells likely arose through symbiosis between larger cells and bacteria. Chloroplasts were once free-living photosynthetic bacteria. Mitochondria were once free-living energy metabolizing bacteria. Entire lineages of plants and animals evolved from symbiotic associations. Symbiosis shows that evolution isn't solely about competition. Cooperation, partnership, integration create new possibilities. Understanding symbiosis reveals that individual organism is often an illusion. Most are actually collectives of cooperating entities. The evolution of intelligence. Intelligence appears scattered throughout life. In octopuses, solving puzzles. In corvids, using tools. In elephants, recognizing themselves. Intelligence provides advantages, better problem solving, learning from experience, adapting to new situations. Intelligent creatures can invent solutions rather than waiting for evolution to produce them. Evolution has favored intelligence repeatedly in various lineages, suggesting it's advantageous. Mammalian brains are generally more complex than reptile brains. Primate brains are especially complex. Humans have the most complex brains known. Intelligence allows flexibility, behavior adjusting to circumstances. An intelligent creature can modify its approach when one strategy fails. Intelligence can also be costly. Brains require enormous energy. They develop slowly. There's a trade-off between intelligence and other adaptations. Despite the cost, intelligence has evolved repeatedly, suggesting benefits outweigh costs. Intelligence is perhaps evolution's most remarkable achievement, the ability for organisms to think about themselves, to question, to wonder. From early primates to humans. Primates appeared around 55 million years ago. Small tree-dwelling mammals that evolved grasping hands and forward-facing eyes for life in trees. Over millions of years, primates diversified from small insectivores to apes. Around 7 million years ago, humans diverged from other apes. Early hominins were bipedal, walking upright, yet still ape-like. Around 4 million years ago, more human-like forms appeared. Around 2 million years ago, the genus Homo appeared, with larger brains and tool use. Around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, modern humans, emerged. For most of human existence, our species lived as hunter-gatherers, evolving sophisticated tools, language, and culture. Around 10,000 years ago, agriculture began, transforming human societies. Around 5,000 years ago, cities appeared. Human evolution didn't stop with anatomical modernity. Cultural evolution continued, creating increasingly complex societies. Technology advanced exponentially. The past 200 years saw more technological change than the previous million. Humans didn't just adapt to environments. We transformed environments. We became a geological force, reshaping the planet. The first humans walked the earth. Imagine Africa, 300,000 years ago. Anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, existed but in small populations. They looked like modern humans, yet lacked modern culture. They hunted with simple tools. They lived in small bands. They spoke, though their language was likely simpler than modern languages. They created art, though their artistic culture was less developed. Over tens of thousands of years, humans became more sophisticated. Language became more complex. Tools became more specialized. Art became more elaborate. Around 70,000 years ago, something shifted. Humans developed increased symbolic thinking, better tools, more efficient hunting. They began creating jewelry, decorative objects, cave art. Around 65,000 years ago, humans began migrating out of Africa, dispersing globally. Within 20,000 years, they'd colonized most of the world. Within 40,000 years, they reached Australia and the Americas. This rapid dispersal was extraordinary. Humans adapted to every environment, from tropics to tundra. They hunted large game to extinction in many regions. They created cultures, adapted to local conditions. They became the most successful large mammal ever, dominating through intelligence and technology. How fire changed our destiny. Fire was transformative for humans. Early humans found fire caused by lightning or volcanoes, but eventually learned to create it. Fire provided warmth, light, protection from predators, and heat for cooking. Cooking made food more digestible, more nutritious, digestible even for weak individuals. Fire enabled living in colder climates. Fire concentrated groups around it, enabling stronger social bonding. Fire was used for tool making, hardening wood and stone. Fire drove game animals during hunts. Fire changed the landscape, creating grasslands preferred by hunters. Fire was transformative, not just ecologically, but psychologically. Sitting around fire, humans could gather, share stories, solidify culture. Fire was the center of human life and remains symbolically central to human psychology. Fire gave humans energy beyond their own bodies. Cooking increased caloric intake. Tool making became more sophisticated. Hunting became more efficient. Human populations grew. Human brains developed to their modern size. Humans became increasingly dominant. Fire was perhaps the most important technology humans ever discovered. More important than agriculture. More important than writing. More important than industry. The rise of human societies. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small bands as hunters and gatherers. This lifestyle was stable, sustainable, supporting human populations without environmental destruction. Then, around 10,000 years ago, agriculture began. Humans started cultivating plants, domesticating animals. This allowed population growth, permanent settlements, specialization of labor. Agriculture supported cities, complex societies, writing, science, art. Agriculture transformed humans from environmental harmonizers to environmental engineers. Humans shaped landscapes through agriculture. Forests were cleared for crops. Savannas were grazed by domesticated animals. Rivers were redirected for irrigation. Ecosystems were simplified. Biodiversity reduced. Agricultural societies were hierarchical, with elites controlling resources. Warfare became common as groups competed for land. Slavery emerged. Yet agriculture also enabled civilization, culture, science. Writing was invented to track agricultural surplus. Mathematics developed for accounting. Astronomy and navigation flourished. Agriculture was transformative, creating both opportunities and problems that persist today. Life shaped by human hands. The landscape we see today is largely shaped by humans. Forests have been cleared. Prairies have been converted to farmland. Wetlands have been drained. Rivers have been dammed. Mountains have been mined. The ocean has been fished. Almost every terrestrial ecosystem has been modified. Species have been introduced and removed. Natural fire cycles have been suppressed, causing ecosystem changes. Humans have created entirely new ecosystems: cities, agricultural lands, managed forests. These human-created ecosystems support some biodiversity, especially in the cities, but generally support far less than natural ecosystems. Many species have been driven extinct by human activity, directly through hunting or habitat destruction, or indirectly through ecosystem disruption. Others have expanded due to human activities, some as agricultural pests, others as species escaped from captivity. The modern world is increasingly a human-shaped landscape. Few places remain untouched. Even wilderness areas are influenced by human activities. Climate change, pollution, invasive species. Life adapted to human-shaped landscapes, but rapidly, too rapidly for most species to evolve significantly. Most modern biodiversity lives in a world reshaped by humans. The age of agriculture. Agriculture began independently in multiple locations around 10,000 years ago. Humans in the Middle East cultivated wheat and barley, domesticated sheep and goats. In China, humans cultivated rice and millet. In the Americas, humans cultivated maize, beans, squash. Agriculture allowed population growth. A given area of land could support far more humans through agriculture than through hunting and gathering. Agricultural surplus supported non-food producing specialists, priests, warriors, artisans. Hierarchical societies formed around agricultural production. Cities emerged. Yet agriculture had costs. Monocultures reduced biodiversity. Nutrient depletion required fallowing or fertilization. Disease was facilitated by dense populations. Warfare was more common, more lethal. Still, agriculture spread globally because it supported larger populations. Humans could multiply beyond what hunting and gathering allowed. Today, agriculture feeds 8 billion humans. Without agriculture, such populations would be impossible. Agriculture fundamentally changed human existence and the planet's ecological structure. Cities, culture, and connection. Around 5,000 years ago, cities appeared, large permanent settlements with specialized occupations, trade networks, and cultural institutions. Cities required administrative systems, writing, mathematics. Cities created civilizations, complex societies with hierarchical structures, laws, armies. Cities enabled cultural development, art, literature, music, religion. Cities created knowledge systems, astronomy, geometry, medicine. Yet cities also created environmental stress. Large populations required enormous resource extraction. Waste accumulated, pollution increased, deforestation accelerated. Today, over half of humans live in cities. Cities are centers of culture, commerce, and innovation. They're also centers of environmental impact. Modern cities require resources from vast areas outside their boundaries. Modern cities create waste streams affecting distant ecosystems. Yet cities also concentrate human activity, potentially reducing per capita environmental impact. Human culture emerged from cities. Writing was invented to track urban commerce. Mathematics was developed for urban accounting. Philosophy emerged in urban centers. Science flourished in cities. Modern civilization is fundamentally urban, shaped by city life, city values, city culture. How humans transformed the planet. Humans have become a dominant planetary force. We extract resources at rates exceeding replenishment. We create pollution that accumulates globally. We alter climate through greenhouse gas emissions. We redirect water through dams and irrigation. We move species globally, disrupting ecosystems. We extract the ocean, reducing fish populations to near extinction in some regions. We've altered the composition of the atmosphere, raising carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. We've created dead zones in oceans where nutrients accumulate. We've created a layer of plastic in the ocean, and pollution in every ecosystem. We've eliminated 90% of large ocean fish. We've cleared 80% of forests. We've drained 90% of wetlands. Yet we've also transformed for positive reasons, creating protected areas, developing renewable energy, reducing pollution locally. Humans have unprecedented power. For the first time in Earth's history, a species deliberately shapes the planet's future. The question is whether we'll use that power wisely or recklessly. The balance between growth and nature. Humanity faces a profound challenge: how to support current and projected populations while maintaining ecosystems. Growth has been the human trajectory for millennia. Populations grow, economies grow, resource extraction grows. But Earth is finite. Resources are limited. Ecosystems have carrying capacities. At some point, infinite growth becomes impossible. We've reached that point in many resources. Overfishing has depleted stocks. Deforestation has reduced forests. Aquifer depletion threatens agriculture. Climate change threatens stability. We must transition from growth-based economy to sustainable economy. This requires valuing ecosystem services, clean water, pollination, carbon sequestration that we currently treat as free. It requires reducing waste, reusing materials, shifting to renewable energy. It requires limiting population growth or improving distribution. It requires changing culture to value sustainability over consumption. This transition is beginning. Renewable energy is expanding. Recycling is becoming normal. Environmental concern is growing. But the transition is too slow. Carbon emissions continue rising. Extinction rates accelerate. Yet transition is possible. Humans can adapt. We've solved major problems before through innovation and social change. Climate and ecological crises are solvable if we prioritize solutions. The mystery of conscious life. Consciousness, awareness, subjective experience remains mysterious. We're conscious. We know our own awareness. But how does awareness arise from matter? How do neurons firing produce the felt sensation of experience? This is the hard problem of consciousness, one of science's greatest mysteries. Consciousness appears to exist on a spectrum. Simple animals have rudimentary awareness, sensation, response to stimuli. Complex animals have more sophisticated awareness, memory, anticipation, pain. Humans have abstract consciousness. We think about thinking, contemplate meaning, imagine futures. Consciousness appears to require sophisticated nervous systems, but doesn't seem to require human-level brains. Octopuses, with brains structured entirely differently from vertebrates, show signs of consciousness. Birds, with tiny brains, demonstrate intelligence and apparently consciousness. Dolphins show self-recognition and complex social behavior suggesting consciousness. Does consciousness exist in simpler animals? Is it present in insects? Does it exist in simpler organisms? We don't know. Consciousness might be present in forms we don't recognize. It might require specific neural architecture we're only beginning to understand. Understanding consciousness is perhaps the greatest challenge facing science, touching on philosophy, neuroscience, and the nature of reality itself. Emotions and awareness in animals. Emotions aren't uniquely human. Animals clearly experience emotions. A dog expresses joy at greeting you. A cat expresses irritation when disturbed. A chimpanzee expresses grief at losing a group member. Birds sing, seemingly for pleasure. Dolphins play with apparent enjoyment. Animals seek out pleasurable experiences and avoid painful ones, suggesting they have subjective experience of pleasure and pain. Emotions are adaptive. Fear alerts to danger. Anger prepares for conflict. Joy reinforces beneficial behaviors. Emotions guided behavior long before consciousness. Simple animals have emotional-like responses without complex cognition. As brains evolved, emotions became more sophisticated. Empathy appeared, ability to feel what others feel. Altruism appeared, helping others at cost to self. These behavioral traits are present in many animals. Mammals show clear emotional behaviors. Birds show emotional behaviors. Even reptiles and fish show emotional responses. Emotions appear to be ancient, present in animals long before humans. Understanding animal emotions reveals that the inner life of animals is richer than we typically assume. They're not automata, but creatures with subjective experiences, with feelings, with awareness. Communication across species. Animals communicate in elaborate ways. Dogs use barks, growls, body posture to communicate. Cats use meows, purrs, tail position. Birds use song and calls. Whales use complex vocalizations. Ants use pheromones. Communication appears universal, Almost every animal species uses signals to convey information. Humans have developed language, perhaps more sophisticated than other animals, but the fundamental principle, using signals to transmit information, is universal. What's remarkable is that communication crosses species boundaries. Humans communicate with dogs, understanding basic signals. Dogs communicate with cats through body language. Prey species recognize predator alarm calls. Species can coexist because they communicate, sharing information that allows coordination. Some animals have learned human language, or at least respond to it. Border collies understand hundreds of words. Parrots learn words and appear to understand meaning. Dolphins respond to human signals. Primates learn sign language and use it to express complex thoughts. Communication across species reveals intelligence and sophistication in animals we often underestimate. It reveals that the world is filled with meaning-making creatures trying to convey information, connect with others, and coordinate behavior. The music of whales and birds. Whales sing. They produce sequences of sounds that seem to carry meaning, that evolve over time, that appear to be learned, rather than entirely instinctive. Whale songs are complex, lasting hours, with themes and variations. Different populations have different dialects. Songs change year to year. Some researchers believe whale songs convey meaning, information about location, identity, emotion. Whales also click, echolocate, use various vocalizations for communication. Birds sing for multiple reasons: territorial defense, mate attraction, group coordination. Bird songs are learned. Young birds learn by listening to adults. Different populations have different dialects. Some species have complex songs with dozens of components. Mockingbirds mimic other species. Parrots learn words. The sophistication of bird and whale vocalizations suggests they use communication for sophisticated purposes. Music appears to have evolved because it serves functions: bonding, coordination, information transfer. Humans use music for the same purposes. We sing together, creating social bonds. Music might be universal because it serves fundamental needs. The music of whales and birds reveals that music isn't uniquely human, but an evolutionary adaptation that appeared multiple times, serving communication and social functions. The language of trees. Recent research suggests trees communicate through underground networks. Mycorrhizal fungi connect to tree roots, forming networks connecting different trees. Through these networks, trees may share nutrients, send chemical signals, warn of pests. A tree attacked by insects may send signals through the network, alerting other trees to produce defensive chemicals. Mother trees may preferentially send nutrients to their offspring. Trees appear to recognize kin and favor relatives. Whether this constitutes language is debated. It doesn't involve deliberate symbol creation, as human language does, but it does involve information transfer. Trees are networked, connected, communicating. They appear to have rudimentary intelligence, responding to their environment, adapting behavior based on circumstances. A tree doesn't have a brain, but has distributed processing through its root system and mycorrhizal network. Trees are more active participants in their ecosystem than we typically realize. They're not passive structures, but responding organisms, networking with neighbors, engaged in their environment. How life adapts to every corner of the earth. Life colonizes almost every environment on Earth: deserts, tundra, tropical rainforests, mountains, oceans, underground caverns. Every habitat hosts life. Life adapts to extreme conditions: boiling springs, frozen tundra, salt lakes, acid mine drainage. Extremophiles thrive in conditions lethal to most organisms. Thermophiles survive in 250-degree Fahrenheit springs. Psychrophiles thrive in frozen Antarctic lakes. Helophiles survive in salt concentrations that would desiccate most organisms. Eosophiles live in pH environments that would dissolve most proteins. Barophiles thrive under extreme pressure in ocean trenches. These extremophiles reveal that life is far more adaptable than we assumed. They expand our understanding of what life might look like on other planets. If life can thrive in Earth's most extreme environments, perhaps it could thrive in similarly extreme environments elsewhere. Extremophiles also show that adaptation is limited only by available chemistry and energy. Life finds a way to extract energy from whatever is available, whether that's sunlight, chemical reactions, or thermal energy. Extremophiles in boiling springs and ice. In Yellowstone's boiling hot springs, life thrives at temperatures exceeding 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Thermophilic bacteria pump out energy from chemical reactions, maintaining metabolism in conditions that would destroy most proteins. These bacteria are adapted at a molecular level. Their proteins have different structures. Their membranes are different. Their entire chemistry is modified for heat. In Antarctic lakes, frozen for millions of years, beneath thick ice, life persists. Psychrophilic organisms survive in sub-freezing temperatures through antifreeze proteins and modified metabolism. These extremophiles show adaptation at the deepest level. Not just behavior or morphology, but fundamental chemistry is modified. These organisms reveal that life's adaptability is extraordinary. Wherever there's energy and chemistry, life finds a way to exploit it. These extreme environments were lifeless not long ago. As technology improved, scientists discovered life thriving in conditions previously thought sterile. Each discovery expands our understanding of life's possibilities. Life at the deep sea vents, at the bottom of the ocean, in complete darkness, near hydrothermal vents, thrives an ecosystem entirely independent of sunlight. Chemosynthetic bacteria extract energy from chemical reactions between hot water rich in minerals and cold seawater. These bacteria form the base of a food chain. Tube worms, some reaching 10 feet long, harbor bacteria in their tissues, extracting energy from bacterial chemosynthesis. Giant clams, eyeless shrimp, blind crabs, and countless other species thrive in communities around vents. These ecosystems are entirely independent of solar energy. They represent an alternative path for life, independent of the sun. They suggest that life might thrive in subsurface oceans of distant moons or planets without photosynthesis. They reveal that life doesn't require sunlight, only energy and chemistry. Vent ecosystems are relatively recently discovered, but they likely existed billions of years ago. Some scientists believe life originated near such vents, in environments where chemical energy was abundant. Vent ecosystems are fragile, threatened by mining and exploration, yet they're resilient, recovering when disturbances cease. They show life's ability to persist and thrive in seemingly inhospitable environments. The fragility of life's balance. Life on Earth exists in delicate balance. Ecosystems are interdependent. Remove one species and cascading effects ripple through. Predators control prey. Prey consume plants. Plants release oxygen. Decomposers recycle nutrients. Each element is crucial. When humans disrupt this balance, consequences follow. When wolves were eliminated from Yellowstone, elk populations exploded, overgrazing vegetation, altering river dynamics. When wolves were reintroduced, ecosystems recovered. The balance is delicate. Seemingly small changes have enormous consequences. Climate is similarly balanced. Small changes in atmospheric composition affect temperature, which affects precipitation, which affects ecosystems, which affects more systems. The climate has been relatively stable for 10,000 years, enabling human civilization, but we're disrupting that stability. The consequences are already visible. Changing precipitation patterns, melting ice, shifting seasons. These changes threaten agriculture, disrupt ecosystems, displace species. The balance that supports modern civilization is fragile, easily disrupted. difficult to restore once damaged. We're conducting a planetary experiment with unknown consequences. The impact of climate on life. Climate shapes life. Temperature, precipitation, seasons, and extremes determine what species can survive where. Climate change, rapid shifts in these patterns, disrupts life. Species evolve to specific climates. They have temperature ranges they tolerate, rainfall they require, seasonal patterns they've adapted to. When climate changes rapidly, species can't adapt. They must migrate or go extinct. Climate change is occurring at an unprecedented rate, roughly 10 times faster than previous extinction events. Species can't evolve fast enough to adapt. Migration is often blocked by human development. Extinction is accelerating. Plants are shifting their ranges northward and upward in elevation. Animals are adjusting migration times. Some species are thriving as climate shifts favor them, but more are struggling. Polar bears lose sea ice hunting grounds. Mountain species have nowhere to migrate. Tropical species already at their thermal limit have nowhere to cool down. Climate change threatens agriculture, fisheries, water availability. It threatens human civilization indirectly through ecosystem disruption. Climate shapes life, and we're changing climate rapidly. Life will adapt over millions of years, but in the short term, the consequences are severe. The beauty of biodiversity. Earth hosts millions of species, each with unique adaptations, unique roles, unique beauty. Biodiversity is intrinsically valuable. The sheer variety of life is wondrous. It's also functionally valuable. Diverse ecosystems are more resilient than simple ones. More species means more redundancy. If one species fails, others compensate. Diverse ecosystems are more productive, extracting more energy from sunlight. Diverse ecosystems provide more services, pollination, water purification, climate regulation. Diverse genetics means populations are more adaptable to changing conditions. Biodiversity is a buffer against uncertainty. Yet biodiversity is declining. Extinction rates are 100 to 1,000 times higher than background rates. We're losing species faster than we can even discover them. Some estimates suggest we're losing 137 species per day. This is a sixth mass extinction caused by human activity. The primary drivers are habitat loss, climate change, pollution, and overharvesting. Protecting biodiversity requires protecting habitats, reducing climate change, limiting pollution, managing, harvesting sustainably. It requires valuing species, not just for utility to humans, but for their intrinsic worth. How every species plays a role. Every species plays a role in its ecosystem. Some roles are obvious. Apex predators control prey. Plants produce oxygen. Other roles are subtle. Decomposers recycle nutrients. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria create soil fertility. Pollinators enable reproduction. A single species might have multiple roles. A tree provides food, shelter, oxygen production. A predator controls prey, controls competitor species through indirect effects. Removing a species disrupts all these functions. The loss might cascade through ecosystems. Some species are particularly important. Keystones. If lost, ecosystems collapse. Keystone species aren't necessarily abundant or impressive, but are ecologically crucial. Sea otters were hunted nearly to extinction. When they vanished, sea urchin populations exploded, overgrazing kelp forests. Entire ecosystems collapsed. When otters were reintroduced, kelp forests recovered. Sea otters are keystone species. Their absence cascades through ecosystems. Every species contributes to ecosystem function. Understanding this reveals that every species matters. Extinction isn't just loss of individual organisms, but loss of function, loss of potential, loss of beauty. Extinction and renewal. Extinction is natural. Over 99% of all species that ever existed are extinct. Throughout Earth's history, species have emerged and disappeared as conditions changed. Competition shifted. Asteroids struck. Extinction is not bad. It's part of evolution. Without extinction, species can't diversify. New niches can't open. Yet the current extinction rate is extraordinary. We're losing species at rates similar to past mass extinctions. The difference is that past extinctions were caused by natural events, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate change. Current extinction is caused by humans. We're causing a mass extinction through habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, overharvesting. This is unprecedented. For the first time, a single species is causing extinction of countless others, yet renewal is possible. When humans stop hunting a species, it can recover. When habitat is protected, ecosystems can restore. When pollution stops, environments can heal. Recovery takes time, often decades or centuries, but it's possible. We can slow extinction, reverse some losses, prevent future extinctions through conservation efforts. We have the knowledge and technology. What we need is will, commitment, and priority. The search for life beyond Earth. We're alone on Earth. But is Earth alone in the universe? This question has fascinated humans for millennia. Science now suggests life might be common. The ingredients for life, carbon, water, energy, are widespread. Billions of planets exist. Many inhabitable zones where water could exist. Life emerged on Earth quickly after conditions allowed. This suggests life might emerge readily where conditions permit. We've searched for extraterrestrial life using radio telescopes, looking for signals from intelligent civilizations. We've analyzed light from distant planets, searching for atmospheric signatures of life. We've sent spacecraft to investigate the moons and planets of our solar system. So far, we've found no definitive evidence of life beyond Earth. Yet the search continues. Future telescopes will analyze atmospheres of distant planets for biosignatures. Probes will explore ocean worlds like Europa and Enceladus. Humans might eventually visit Mars. If life exists elsewhere, its discovery would profoundly change how we understand ourselves. If life is rare, it would increase the preciousness of Earth's biosphere. If life is common, it would suggest we're part of a universal phenomenon. What makes Earth so unique? Earth is unique. It orbits a star massive enough to be stable for billions of years, but not so massive it would explode. It orbits at a distance where liquid water can exist. It has a moon massive enough to stabilize its axial tilt, preventing chaotic climate swings. It has a magnetic field, protecting from solar radiation. It has a thick atmosphere, enabling plate tectonics and weather. It has the right chemical composition. Earth has intelligent life, capable of contemplating itself, capable of science, capable of wonder. How many planets are this fortunate? Estimates suggest billions of planets in habitable zones. Yet Earth seems special. Perhaps life is common, but intelligence is rare. Perhaps conscious observers like us are extraordinarily rare. This would make Earth precious beyond measure, a place where the universe can contemplate itself. It would also create responsibility to preserve this unique biosphere, to protect the conditions enabling life. Even if other living worlds exist, Earth's particular assemblage of species, its history, its potential, these are unique and irreplaceable. The future of life on our planet. The future of life on Earth depends largely on human choices. If we address climate change, protect ecosystems, limit pollution, control population, life will flourish. If we continue current trajectories, we'll see continued extinction, degraded ecosystems, destabilized climate. The most likely future is somewhere between partial success and partial failure. We'll probably protect some ecosystems while losing others. We'll probably limit climate change somewhat while still experiencing significant disruption. We'll probably lose some species while protecting others. The future depends on choices we make now. Solutions exist: renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, ecosystem restoration, pollution control. We have the technology. Implementation requires political will. economic commitment, and cultural shift. This shift is beginning. Renewable energy is becoming economically competitive. Electric vehicles are proliferating. Organic farming is growing. Protected areas are expanding. Yet progress is too slow. We need acceleration, faster transition to renewable energy, faster protection of ecosystems, faster shift to sustainable practices. The future of life, including human life, depends on how quickly we make this transition. The responsibility of humanity. Humans have become a dominant force on Earth, shaping ecosystems, climate, species distribution. With dominance comes responsibility. We have power, and power creates obligation. We're the only species capable of understanding consequences, capable of planning for futures, capable of choosing differently. We have responsibility to minimize suffering, to preserve beauty, to maintain conditions enabling life. We have responsibility to other species. They didn't ask for us to reshape their worlds. We have responsibility to future humans, to leave them a planet capable of supporting human civilization. We have responsibility to Earth itself, the planet that produced us, the biosphere that sustains us. Meeting these responsibilities requires changing how we live. It requires valuing nature for intrinsic worth, not just utility. It requires limiting consumption, protecting habitat, reducing pollution. It requires thinking long-term, beyond immediate profit or convenience. It requires cooperation globally. Environmental problems, cross borders, require collective solutions. Meeting these responsibilities is challenging, but we have no choice. We've become responsible for Earth's future through our power. We must accept that responsibility. The endless story of life. Life's story on Earth spans 4 billion years. It began in simple chemistry, in warm oceans, where molecules discovered how to replicate. It progressed through single cells, through multicellular organisms, through increasingly complex forms. It survived catastrophes, adapted to challenges, diversified into millions of species. It created intelligence, consciousness, the ability to contemplate itself, and the story continues. Life will persist for billions of years more, until the sun expands and renders Earth uninhabitable. In that time, life will continue evolving, adapting, creating new forms, exploring possibilities. If humans survive, we'll shape that future. If humans perish, life will continue without us, evolving in new directions. Either way, life's story is far from over. It's infinite and endless, constantly creating, constantly destroying, constantly renewing. Life is the universe becoming aware of itself, matter organizing into patterns that can think and feel and wonder. That's what we are, part of life's endless story, brief inhabitants of a transient world, yet conscious of our place in something vast and profound. We're part of nature, not separate from it, and in protecting nature, we protect ourselves, our future, the enduring story of life on Earth.